The balconies are all spectacular. When you go to the balcony and think, what did this look like in 1905 when they first moved here and their vista? Cora was a painter and her studio was the Widow's Watch on the third floor, which we've restored now to resemble a studio again. And I often think, I wonder what her vision was like looking at this and knowing that she'd built something that's going to really endure, but she's looking at a landscape that wouldn't endure, that things would change, that this wouldn't always be the center of a 2,000-acre orchard, that there would be houses and roads and more people. I go to the balcony and I'll wonder, I wonder what she thought looking out here at the loading dock and all the bare vista and the wonderful waving wheat. And she loved the country. We have texts of some of her speeches that were just marvelous. So I enjoy the balconies. I enjoy the little office bathroom simply because we found the original tub out in the weeds and we're able to restore it, bring it back in and put it back where it belongs. If we get on the National Register, it can't ever be subdivided. It'll never be apartments. It can't be torn down. So we've protected it for everybody to enjoy. It's not just we're the caretakers of Cora's house. Cora's let us be here, and she's blessed us with her presence and benevolently, and has helped us along the way. And so many coincidences have happened that we've sort of felt, once we decided to pursue this full scale and really recreate her vision, if you will, we kind of felt she's kind of pushed us and guided us in various ways to do this. And we've come to the point where we are today, decades later, and I think we've hopefully made her proud. And many times I would say to them, and they repeat this to me, how do you think Cora would want us to do that? So we're trying to recreate exactly her vision here. And her departure here was again kind of a sad story. So we doubly felt we sort of need to continue maybe what she never fully finished and honor her life's work in doing this and leave it as a legacy for many generations to come. We found what a brilliant person Cora was in designing this house on wrapping paper on the kitchen table of her old farmhouse. And we thought, as we dug into the history, we've got to honor what this woman intended. A little 5-foot woman that spends these hot summers sorting rocks for every size and color to build this house has got to be honored. And we want to honor her legacy. And I hope as she looks around now, we've made her proud. The sad exit of Cora from the house after her husband died, just 7 months later, she was gone. And left everything here, left her big touring car in the barn, and we really need to investigate. There's a real story here. And then we started digging into the history and finding all their contributions to agriculture, Cora's significance. They were president of the Horticulture Society. She was the first woman member of the American Livestock Association. She and her compatriots were the individuals that got the 1917 alteration to the Selective Service Act passed to exempt farm workers. Cora was this wonderful, benevolent, philanthropist sort of individual. Returned from Washington, Kansas was the first state to pass that amendment, came back here, and the first thing she did with her now farm-exempt workers was load up 10 rail cars of apple and send them to Atlanta. That was 2 weeks after the Great Atlanta Fire. We'd get other bits and pieces of information about the size of the orchard was 180 acres. Wow, it was 360 acres. Wow, it was 480. No, it was 900. As it turns out, they had 2,000 acres in 3 counties of apples. They were the largest apple operation in the world in 1900. The loading dock, they had their own loading dock down in front where you see the pump house now, and shipment after shipment of apples. I marvel at that, to think that all of this entablature and all these fenestrations around the windows, the moldings and cornices were all done by hand in 1898. And here it is 120 years later, just as solid as it was the day it was created. I just marvel at that. And we often ask when we're working here, like I said before, how did they do this? We discovered one of the cornices that you see in tablatures around the crown of the house. We discovered some of those in the old rock pile out behind the carriage house. And 3 of us lifted it up to try and get it on a scale. And we fractured a bathroom scale, which went to 300 pounds. So we just think, this woman was 5 foot nothing. How did this happen? So we marveled at the stonework. We really enjoy the stonework. So the historical connections of the house just go on and on and on and on. Her father, a Civil War captain, POW. You've seen some of the artifacts we found on the property. The boys have found. We just feel like we're in a living history here. And the house has touched so many people. We were having a really difficult time finding the history of the house. As we dug through the house and started working on it, we started finding things that give us more and more clues. 4 years ago, we started real research on the history of the house, and we're just amazed. At that point, we were far enough along that some historically correct individuals had seen the house and said, you know, this property really probably qualifies for national recognition. This house is going that way. We just can't let this happen. This is too significant to everybody in this area, in Kansas, nationally. We just can't let the tide wash these footprints away. Nothing prepared us for our final nomination for historic registration, which was 47 pages, 16,400 words, 66 references, 70 photographs, 2 years of full-time research. And that was my philosophy all along. But what we uncovered was so satisfying that you're going to bring your grandchildren here and say, we were here at Stonehaven and we talked to the guy that restored this house. He'll be here for a lot of people. And protected now that hopefully we'll know next Saturday. So we just stuck to it. If I have any regrets looking back, it's that my parents didn't get to see it finished. But they saw the vision and they saw it under construction, and my father was able to help us here a few times. And would have been nice to have one of them sitting here. And they said, how in the world did you ever do that? And that's what we've done here, year after year after day. We just get up every day and chip a little rock. And some days we get a little rock chipped a great deal, and other days we feel like we've just moved a few grains of sand. But, you know, in the end, a tribe of ants will move a big sand pile. I guess it's just been such a long process. But we made it through all right. You did a great job. It's not right. I didn't know what a grand place it was or how much it meant to all the people of this area. And the history of the house was rapidly being lost. That generation was leaving us. There's stories that should have been able to be passed down, like you heard Andy speak about the Indian culture and storytelling. That was all disappearing. I thought, this might turn into a real house. And we look at what we've done here, and the house long before we were ever here touched thousands of people. And the process that we've done has touched many more. and hopefully we've preserved it now so it'll touch thousands more in the future. And just being able to tell our story and make sure it's preserved and the history's preserved is a great honor for us. It's just a great honor. I'm Kent Porter. I'm the current owner and restorer of Stonehaven Farm. It was just kind of a big old country house. We're making a little progress. And this will be the mark that we leave above the tide line. And we'll leave this for everybody. And what we've done here will be here for everybody 100 years after I'm gone. Be very critical of something that I missed and didn't detail right. But it's been a joy for us to share this with all you guys. And we appreciate you being here so much. Can't thank you enough. From a, oh my gosh moment to, wow, this is pretty cool. I think one of the best things you can do in life is to do something good for someone that can't possibly repay you. And I think we've done something good here for a lot of people that will never even know us in the future. They'll just have to look back and say, well, yeah, many years ago, these guys bought that house and redid it. And so we've kind of done that. We've done something good for people that we'll never know. It's sort of like a blind organ donor. You don't know who saved your life, but you're sure grateful to them. And in this case, someone that loves history and loves to see it preserved, they're not going to know 100 years from now who saved the house, but they'll be thankful we did. It's a long time to dig 727 fence posts. To start out, just moving and getting ready to bring the horses here, I would come out every weekend and mow and cut and chop and, oh my goodness, try and get, even so we could get trucks and things in here and start building fence. He said, can you get any more of these? And discovered those were the only ones in existence. I could visibly see the Bell's palsy starting. We had Clydesdales, and they're very expensive to keep at a boarding facility. Boarding bills were getting kind of outrageous. And no one wanted the liability of those big horses should they get sick, because you can't transport them in a normal trailer. They weigh 2,200 pounds, and you need an 18-wheeler to move them. And the farriers don't want to work on them because their hoofs are like pie plates, dinner plates. So I started looking for property with acreage, and I found modern houses, which didn't appeal to me at all. I'd always lived in older houses. At that time, I had a 1920s house just south of the plaza in Kansas City. And by accident, a patient of mine that I worked with, his mom was involved in real estate. And she called and she said, you know, there's a property out near Tonganoxie that you might be interested in. It's really getting away from these people, and they've decided to sell it. I think there's 20 or 30 acres with it. There's no fence. But she said, boy, the house, it's worth you having a look at. So I came and had a look at it and thought, this is really a pretty amazing place. At that point, didn't know anything about the history. But we saw the lay of the land, and it was soft ground. All of our Clydesdales had come from rocky ground in Colorado. One with real severe leg injury. Could not wear shoes anymore, couldn't be on rocky ground. So I walked around the property and I thought, this is perfect for Willie, and this will work really well. And I had time at that point to come work on the property, start building fence before we actually needed to move here. So that was what happened. At first, it was to get away from outrageous board bills for the horses. We moved them out here, built the fence. Neighbors had the first inkling, I think, of what a maniac had moved across the road from them. He's going down the roadside with an old Ferguson tractor and an auger on it, digging fence posts every weekend. So we spent 2 years building fence and moved the horses out. That was how it started. It was just a place to get away from board bills and move the horses. And I did want to get further out in the country. The area south of the plaza in Kansas City, very crowded and very congested. If you'd have any interest in doing that, it's quite a process. And again, I said, how tough can it be? We've done other houses and we're used to a lot of paperwork. And she was a KGB captain. She's used to all kinds of paperwork. And I was in healthcare. I was used to all kinds of paperwork. We also had the classic cars that we were storing elsewhere, and we needed a place to move those. It was almost a fortuitous accident. But as I say, at that time, we didn't know anything about the history of the house. I'd done several other historic buildings and historic houses, so I wasn't intimidated by the need for work. I thought, this is going to be our mark. It was important to get individuals that believed in that idea. Many people came and went, and my idea with all of them was, if you can't do this particular thing better than I can do it, you don't need to be here. Regular workers and contractors, people that are involved in this sort of thing, remodeling and remodeling, they just didn't get it. They didn't understand why you want to spend this much time and take this all apart and redo it and then put it all back when you could just cover it up and it'd look just as good, as they say. But we managed to find a collection of free artists, as Olga called them, and this eclectic collection of people who were willing to certainly put up with my eccentricities and do things in a way that they always wanted to do, but many of them have told us, and I feel so happy about this. They said, I've never been able to work on a project where I've been able to do it the way I thought it should be done. It's always been the boss saying, this is the way we'll do it. And he said, I've never been in a place where it was a collaboration of how can we do this the best way. I was dismayed at what had been done inside the house to modernize it. And I think they did the best they could. I just looked around and wondered, I wouldn't have chosen that blue carpet, or I wouldn't have put wallpaper there. I was a little taken back by some things, and it was obviously done just kind of in a utilitarian fashion. There was no attempt made to really restore and recapture the grandeur of the house. And so we started in with the real classic restoration and rehabilitation of the house at that point, and with the goal of going toward National Historic status, and then started accumulating all the people to help us, because you cannot do this by yourself. It takes an army to do it. So I can do electric, I can do plumbing, I can do stonework, I can do woodwork, I can do all this sort of thing, but I can't do it the best. A lot of help, though. I can't give credit too much to some of the individuals that you've spoken to. They were here, rain or shine, terrible hot days, miserable days, frustrations that we've had trying to recreate things. And I know they thought I'm just a complete maniac, some of the things I said. I think this is the best way to do this. And they all think I'm kind of a mad scientist. We collaborated and came together with a good working program that evolved year after year. You just don't do this overnight. And as it's taken shape and taken form, it's been through a lot of help, a lot of wonderful people. I think they all feel a wonderful personal connection which is evident in their work as you look around the work they did here. They didn't just do a job. They did something the best way it could be done. And we were very fortunate to have that wonderful collection of individuals. I think it's been kind of a spiritual journey for all of us. And seeing that we've had this opportunity that's been given to us to do something much bigger than yourself. And few people ever get that in life. So we're really blessed with that. The east end of the house, where we had to raise the house up and put all the steel girders underneath it and so forth and blow the walls apart from the pressure on the house jacks, that was our workshop for 10 years. We had the table saws in there and the wood lathe, and for several years on the doors between the kitchen and the dining room, we had a handmade sign that was written in the Sandlot Kids script that said "No girls allowed." And we finally put the beams in place for the balcony, and we had a crew of 8 free artists here that summer painting and doing our structural work, because we had a real short window of time getting that done due to the weather closing in on us. So we thought, well, we really need to get this done because the whole east end of the house was open. We couldn't have that unprotected during the winter. So we were really scrambling. And that was another moment that I walked back and I saw the scaffolding, and I saw the guys clear up the roof of the peak doing the primer work and the final scraping, and I could see the shape of the balcony. And at that point, Andy carried this column up and set it in place and says, "Well, what do you think? It's not done, but what do you think?" And I thought, well, we've done it. We've recreated this balcony, and it actually looks like a balcony. So those were the two moments I think I looked at and thought, we're actually getting somewhere. You know, I had a lot of doubts at first when I started, because so many things in the house were camouflaged one way or another. We didn't realize what had been done that we were going to just have to completely take out. We had the wiring, the electric turned off here for 2 years. The wiring was so bad. Wires twisted together, duct tape stuffed to the walls, all kinds of things. And we had many days where, particularly Clayton and Andy and I, would pick the days that she was not here. And we would have our secret conversations saying, "Thursday, get here early and we'll saw that apart." We had one day, Olga came back to discover the entire kitchen ceiling gone. And her reaction was simply this, "Oh, oh, 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 oh." She couldn't speak and turned around and left. Andy promptly got his keys and said, "You can deal with this," and left me. So, bless her heart, she's recovered from most of those shocks, and she hasn't required any coronary bypass, any other significant medical rehabilitation yet. She's been marvelous partner in this. Came in somewhat kicking and screaming. We would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for her contributions. She's persevered and has taught herself wood refinishing better than any wood refinisher I've ever seen. And just her passion and love for what we're doing has been wonderful. I would think if you want to test marriage, you should try and restore a historic house. If you can survive that, you'll be together till death do you part. Olga, I think she has favorite parts of the house as well, because she's seen how the restoration has taken place.
I'm going to be
Ah,
what your relationship to this house is.
yeah. I, I often think about this young teenager in Amsterdam writing in her diary that you will do things in life and you'll 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 never know how many people they'll touch and how what you do will spin through the universe and touch people that you never expect, that you'll never know, and somehow affect their life.
And I mean, that's really all that you can ask for, you know?
Ruben usually does shopping centers and big restaurants and all this stuff where it's get in, get out, work overnight when nobody's in the building, and the tile contractor on your back and all that sort of thing. And he, again, when he first came out, he looked at what had been done, and I said, "You're not going to hurt my feelings. Tell me what you think of this work. Some of this is mine. I'm not going to tell you which I did. Some of it's somebody else I hired." And he looked at the bathroom that you were in, that very room, and he said, "Well, this is not too bad. There's a better way to do this, and line this up like this, and do this and do that." And I said, "What do you think of this countertop?" So forth. And he looked at that, and well, that's not the best work I've ever seen. That was mine. And he said, "We can regrout this, and we can do this and do that, but I don't really want to do that kind of work." And I said, "You may be the last honest man on earth, and if you have time next weekend, I'd like to have you here. I'll have this all torn out for you." So I did all the tear out of the previous tile, and we started all over again. The shower, all the countertops in there, and the wall tile, the floors, and everything. I tore it all out. And just had to get the healing business going. Guys have to support themselves.
Right.
Same way with Clayton. It gets into warm weather, the concert season starts, and people are calling him saying, "Hey, to come help us rig this Reba McEntire show in Indianapolis." And he just can't turn that kind of money down.
Right.
And he always comes in and cries with Olga saying, and it was so difficult when he started getting his own business going, and he didn't have the time to continue with us. And I could see it was just tearing him up, that he couldn't be here anymore. And that was really difficult for him. His grandfather was getting ill, and he needed to spend more time with him and help him with a lot of life decisions. And he needed to get his own healing business going, and he just didn't have the time to come here anymore. I could feel it was really hurting him not to be able to do that. Yeah, I was so glad that Andy could get his schedule squared away. Probably of all of the individuals, spiritually, he's the deepest guy.
Absolutely.
And his wife, I don't know if he spoke about Rebecca, and she's full-blooded Native American, and they're very spiritual people. And he many times would say, a lot of guys that were here would say it as a joke. Well, I don't think Cora's going to like that very much. I had the feeling anytime I heard something like that from Andy, he sort of felt her right behind his shoulder saying, right. "Andy, I just kind of felt he had this wonderful connection with the house." And from day one, I said, "What do I have to pay you to do this work? It's very difficult and very exacting, and I'm not an easy person to work for. I've had lots of people here, Andy, and if you can't do it better than I can do it, you don't need to be here. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I'll give you a try." And said, what do I need to pay you? And he said, I'd work here for nothing. I said, I think I found the right guy. And I thought, along with our philosophy, that this this will be our footprints. You know, I don't want to say anything bad about the previous owners. I think their vision was certainly not mine. Their vision was to have a house. They had a large family that was comfortable and they could just live in from day to day. But I don't think the historic significance of the house, first of all, they didn't know that much about it. We felt sort of like my idea that life is a walk on the beach and you put footprints in the sand and the tide changes and there's no evidence you were ever there.
You approach
It's so true.
their respective jobs.
That's right.
So
Oh my. The day that we moved all that out and the last piece went out, the stonework